Yes, friends, we had activated the sun. As you know, we will activate the sun and at the same time place it in our indoor lights. And we will cover the bottom part from the effects section here. First, let's make your settings here. Look, there is a custom chest section. So I click on this custom from the adjust the sun section. Friends, look, the clock section above is gone. Since the clock section is gone, I will make adjustments with the height and azimuth part here. Look, now, I brought it here, friends. You adjust it as much as you want the sun to be brought inside. You can also adjust its direction from here. Look, it's a process like this. Very simple, friends. A value of the sun, a value of my sun's light operation. You can make it 0.5 or 0.1. Look, I made it 0.1. It came a bit softer, smoother. The one below is the softness of the shadow entering inside from the sun. If it's too soft, we can't see the values inside, meaning the effect. Look, I did it like this. At 0 value, it became like the evening sun, like the night sun. Kind of like this. Soft and smooth in a cloudy shadow form. Look, normally it happens like this. Look, we have a very sharp shadow. When I do it like this, it's a sufficient value. So when I set it to 1, 2, 1.5, 2, it's such a value. Look, it's not fully visible. I set it to 1.8, a value. That is quite nice. Let's see the effect. Akolotsat, meaning the curtain effect, there from here. That is. Perhaps in the morning, it could be a nice, different sun effect. Friends, we have provided this as well. Now look, let me turn off the effect when I open it like this. It's still like this. So what do I need to do now? I have some lights inside. Look, I pressed the I key on my light here and selected the part where my light is. I came from here, marked the emissive part. The internet is 5 color. But my color is this, friends. I clicked on the white color in the color section, took the dropper here and selected this area, friends, and the light intensity is 5. I set this to 15, friends. Look, 15. As you can see, it gave the value of 15. If it seems too much, we will reduce these. Values of 10 and 15 are ideal for now. Look, what is there? I can see a light between the windows. Did you see it? I click on the I letter for that. I select it from here again, friends. I mark the emissive part. Color. Here, intensity 5. By clicking this, I select my color here. This one is at 5. Let's make it 10. For the glass values over there, friends, look, the glass looks a bit too dark. That's why I showed it from the asset part. Look, when you type material glass, there was basic glass. Click once, Ombasichi, glass, then come and drop it onto the model. Did you see it? How classy and neat it looks. It became very classy. Let's see how it is here. It's the same here, friends. I will come to the coatings later. I'm just making these small effects to change the distribution of light inside. Friends, look, our ambiance has changed all of a sudden. Now, I've come. I pressed the I key again. I selected the part inside the spot over there. Look what happened here. Since this normally appears as a transparent material, I cannot change the emissive value here. Look, we got a very nice error. Actually, it's not an error. The program actually told us that it perceived this as transulate. So the settings for the transparent material came up. But I will change this and make it a custom material from here. Because I need to make this part a light material. Look, why? I opened the emissive part. Look, it turned into a light material. I said light 5. The light can remain white. 10. I did it. I increased it a little bit. Look, here the light has increased by 1. Let's see if the lights on the ceiling have increased with this. Look, there should be an emissive part here. Look, something like this on the camera. Notice? It's moving fast. The camera, it's moving fast. Look, I'm pressing E. I'm pressing Q to go down. It's going up, but it's moving fast. Why? I want to select the light over there, but I can't. You can do that from here. Look, let's set the camera speed to 3 here. Friends, let it stay at 3. I set it to 3. Look, I've come here very slowly. In the part where we did the hidden lighting, I pressed the I key. I selected this light. I don't want to use this light color everywhere. Friends, because it's all the same, it will completely fill the room with this color tone, so I'll activate the emissive. I will leave this area just as white. Friends, I will just set it to 10. Let it stay at 10. Let the white light remain this way. Look, there are also these lights in the back, as you can see. It is turned into white light there. That's the situation. Look, as you can see. If you want, the temperature value can be slightly adjusted, not to a blue value, but slightly broken. It can be a value like this without leaning too much towards yellow. Friends, let it be a value like this. Here are my spotlights, look. Those spotlights were already rotating. I mean, they were going around the hidden lighting. This is how the process went. Now we have something like this here. Look, there is a black color. Do you see it? Around the spotlight. Let's make this metal. Very simple. I clicked on the letter I. I selected the black color. It says the color is black. Look, Ragnar Speckler Metallic. When you pull it to metallic, see what happens? You can't see much of an effect because my color is black, friends. The color is like this from the week. But look, there's no reflection or shine on it. Look, I lowered the roughness value. See, I lowered the roughness value like this. Let's lower the specular and increase it. And look, it resembles the reflection here. After lowering the roughness value, see, when I increase the roughness value, it becomes completely matte. And when I lower it, the reflection appears. Friends, as you can see here, when I increase the metallic value, it gets significantly darker. This is the process. I made it metallic from here. I can also make this metal. I click on it. I brought the metal. I lowered the roughness. I increased the specular. It reached the maximum reflection point. The color situation is the critical point for us here, friends. It's actually a criterion point because the variability of the color situation affects the quality of the metals here. Friends, that's why I marked it here without altering the color there. Now, regarding the lights, look, we also had hidden lights here. You know, these are all about color, friends. You click on the color, it becomes light. There's simply nothing else. Emissive property. We've done all of these. Look again. I came here. I came here. I'm looking again. Look, since the operations I've done from the beginning are only light operations, I haven't made any adjustments on the coatings. But my scene is slowly starting to come together, friends. Look, but my scene looks crooked. What did I need to do to make it upright? I needed to press the F8 key. I pressed fade from here. It became perfectly upright. I pressed plus again. And scene 4. I have created it, friends. If I take a render from here, it will generally give me a nice render on average, friends. But for now, I'm leaving this process here. In our next lesson, we will continue by adding spotlights and other extra light qualities.